Hey girl, you're tuned into the Grace Code podcast. I'm your host Lisa, and this is a show all about unlocking Jesus in the everyday. What's the everyday? Well, it's things like your faith, career, relationships, health, and so much more. I pray that this podcast leaves you inspired and passionate to find Jesus as you go about your everyday and encourages you to step out of your comfort zone and step into the things that God is calling you to. Hey fam, it's your girl Lisa here, and if this is your first time listening to the Grace Code, I am so excited you are here and joining me for episode number 9. You know, next week we hit double digits and I have a very special guest joining me then. It is my husband Ash. So if you have any questions for him or for us both, make sure you either head to the website and send them through or pop on over to Insta and DM me. And I will be sure to ask him all of them. And now that I've said this publicly, he can't back out. So I look forward to next week's episode and I hope you do too. Now, if you're an avid listener from the start, I just want to say a massive thank you for being here, for tuning in weekly, and for joining me on this journey. So this week's episode kind of comes out of an announcement that I made last week on Insta. You know, God's been speaking to me recently about a few things, but one of them is about getting back into design and starting up a small stationery line again. Now, old Lise would have taken that and jumped straight in, but new, more mature Lise has been meticulously planning products and the release and everything that comes with that. Now, in saying that, I need to make sure that I don't use that all as an excuse to procrastinate, making sure everything is perfect before the launch. So it's definitely an interesting journey and balance that I'm going through at the moment. Now, if you want to stay up to date with it all, make sure you head over to Insta or sign up to the collective via the website. But why am I telling you all this? Well, firstly, I want to keep you guys in the loop and bring you on a bit of the behind the scenes journey about what it takes to, start up a product line, start up a business, and, the things that I'm going to do to launch it. And secondly, I now have a question for you. Have you ever dreamt of turning that one thing you were super passionate about into a side business? Something that you can earn a bit of money from and supplement your income and your lifestyle? Do you have a gift, a skill, or a talent that maybe you could be harnessing to earn extra cash from while you're studying? Or do you just want another outlet to express yourself in other than your full-time job? Maybe you've lost your job due to the season we're in and are trying to think of something you can start. So if that's you, DM me, let me know. I'd love to pray for you, no matter which one you kind of fall into. And I think, this episode is going to have some gold for you. So make sure you are taking some notes and, send me through some feedback and let me know where you're at. But you know what? I have a confession to make. I am that type of person. I am a known serial entrepreneur. Okay, so before we get any further, I hate that word because I really struggle to pronounce it. So I apologize in advance if I absolutely murder it. Now, y'all know I'm not about that hustle life, but for the sake of this illustration, maybe you've dreamed of having your own side hustle. I've been there. As I said, I am a known serial entrepreneur. So this is part 1 in this series. And I want to give you a bit of insight into my journey and share with you what I consider the essential ingredients that you need to start up something from scratch. Now, I'm a bit of a strange one, you could say. You see, while I love being creative and designing things, I love styling events, creating recipes, I'm also quite the admin-minded type of person. So nearly all of my real jobs, the jobs that people see as real work in the real world, have all been in some kind of administrative role. Like, crazy, hey? And I tell you that to say, don't box yourself in. If you're in a 9-to-5 and want to do something a little left field and work that creative muscle, go and do it. The same goes for all my creative girls out there. If you've lived the freelance life but want something, a bit more solid, a bit more stable, go get yourself that 9-to-5. You do you. Either way, maybe now's the time to ask yourself what's stopping you from stepping out and doing whatever it is you want to do. Just the other day, I was having a conversation with a friend and I was sharing with her something that's been on my heart to do. I mentioned that, hey, I'm actually a bit nervous to step out and do it. And she asked me why. It was in that moment that I actually had to stop and process what I was actually feeling and acknowledge why I was feeling that way. It was only then, once I acknowledged it, that I could move past it and actually go, okay, God, you've called me to take this next step. Yeah, I feel the way I'm feeling, but I'm going to do it anyway because you're partnering with me. So that's what I want to ask you today. Not only what's stopping you, but more importantly, why is it stopping you? I encourage you to sit down and take some time to reflect and even journal out that answer. And once you do, I then want you to ask yourself, what are you working towards in life? What's your aim? Not what your purpose is, not what your call is, but what is your aim? So as an example, my purpose is to love Jesus and make his name known. But my aim in life is to have more time and more flexibility and the freedom to do the things I want to do on my own schedule. Another aim for me is, being able to financially contribute to my household while still having that freedom and that flexibility in life to do other things. So I've worked 9-to-5 jobs since I was 18, and that was not the life I wanted to live forever. It just doesn't gel with who I am and the unique makeup God has given me. And I'm totally okay with that because the more I tried to force it, because, it's what society told me I should be doing, the unhappier and more stressed out I became. And that's when I started to look at what I had and what I could do with it. Now, as some of you may or may not know, I love cooking. I'm Italian, so it's kind of in my blood. And so I have a food blog. Now, this was birthed out of a bit of a passion project mixed with, a possible change of careers. And I love the styling process that comes with the food blog. I love challenging my creative brain in new ways. But what I really love most about having a food blog is the creative process that comes with recipe development. Often my recipes start out by, opening the pantry or the fridge first thing in the morning or, at 5 o'clock at night wondering, what am I going to cook for dinner? What am I going to make with what I have right in front of me? And really what drove me to start a blog about food is something I haven't spoken much about. But, I have a few health issues, and so I have to be gluten-free, soy-free, and generally sugar-free. That's probably the hardest one to be, really. I'm also dairy-free because I have lactose intolerance, and as a child, not being able to have ice cream sucked. But I have to eat like this as I can get really bad reactions to foods, and to help keep inflammation in my body down to try and help heal it. So a majority of the time, I have to make my foods from scratch. So, I think this is what a lot of us who want to step out into business ask ourselves, how do I start doing this from scratch when I have no idea what I'm doing? I have zero business experience. I have no idea how to do this whole work from home thing. And, you might be the person that doesn't even consider themselves as businessy. So Going back to recipe development, at the end of the day, when I look in the fridge and the pantry and ask the question, what do I have and what can I do with it? It's the same question you need to ask yourself if you want to get into having your own business. What do you have to give and what can you do with what you have been given? So some nights, probably when I'm feeling a little bit lazy or it's really, really hot in summer, I would just make a simple salad. I'll grab the lettuce, the tomato, the cucumber, maybe some olives, and if I am feeling really special, maybe a can of tuna. It's the simplest of salads. And you can start off in business exactly like that, as a simple salad. You don't need all the fancy gear. You don't need a website straight away. You don't need to spend a heap of money in upfront costs if you don't yet even know if your idea is going to be viable. And I've been there. We can get so emotionally wrapped up in this exciting new idea and business venture and just want to get to the finish line without making sure it's something people actually want or need. And as an entrepreneur as such, the number one question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we serve someone? Then how can we serve them better? So friend, take away that overwhelm that you might be feeling by knowing that you can start small, you can start simply, all with what you have in front of you right now. So we're going to keep going with this cooking analogy, okay? Now imagine you're standing in front of your pantry and you're about to bake a chocolate cake. There are going to be certain ingredients that you need in order to make sure your end result is a delicious chocolate cake. You need eggs, you need flour, and of course you're going to need some form of chocolate. So when I'm baking, I like to think of these as my essential ingredients. If they're in my pantry, I know I can always go and make a chocolate cake. There's also essential ingredients as such that you need to start off that business from scratch. So we're going to go through 5 of them and break them down a little bit. So, if it's something you need to know, I encourage you to write it down so you can refer back to it and use it as you start planning your next steps. So essential number 1, you need a skill, a talent, or a gift. We have all been given something from God that we can excel in or we can learn to excel in. We just need to put in the time and effort. I didn't start off knowing how to hand letter. My normal handwriting is pretty atrocious, and it took many hours of practice to start to learn how to do it and do it well. And I still practice, I still get practice sheets and I still run over them, especially when using apps like Procreate. And so if it's something you want to get into, make sure you are putting in the time and effort to learn your craft. So, what is your skill? What do you have that you can serve others with? Do you enjoy making cupcakes? Maybe you could sell them. Are you incredible with time management? Maybe you could be a VA. Maybe you're an ace with numbers and bookkeeping is right up your alley. Or maybe you're a wordsmith and copywriting or writing a book is more your thing. The point is, we all have something to give. So what is yours? Discover it, work on it, and harness it. Essential ingredient number 2. I mentioned this earlier, but you need to make sure your idea or the business you want to get into is viable. So how do we do that? Well, it's with the age-old tried and true method of the freebie. So offer your friends, offer your family your skill or your product for free in return for some kind of review, testimonial, or feedback. Take this feedback, rework your processes, and use it to just start thinking about how you will market yourself. This feedback isn't meant to overwhelm you or point out the things you may not have right. It's meant to show you that, hey, this idea of yours actually could work. There's someone out there that wants to pay you money for this. Another way to get some feedback is through surveys. And I've done this myself. I've jumped on my socials and asked a few questions, which helped me determine the products and services I was going to offer. It helped me refine the solution to the problem that I was going to solve. Okay, so essential number 3 is be a mouthpiece. You need to share what you have with the world. Now, I sometimes struggle with this. I am not the biggest person that loves self-promotion. So a few people don't really even know I have a podcast. So when they find out, they're kind of shocked. Why didn't you share it with us? And I'm like, I don't know. So in other words, girl, if you aren't going to talk yourself up and promote yourself, no one else will, because they're not going to know about you. So start doing it. There's no point in having a website if no one is going to visit it. So leave that for later on down the track. Instead, work on your social media. At this point in time, it's the number one way to reach out to your customers. So think about where they're going to be online. Who do they follow? And go there. If you're just starting out, you're going to have to seek them out, because unfortunately, they won't just find you. It's not always a case of build it and they will come. Sometimes it's a case of build it, seek them, get them to come, and then the rest will follow. Unfortunately, the internet is full of algorithms that don't always favor us. So the 4th essential ingredient kind of ties into number 3, but it is customers. So you need to make sure you have your niche and target audience nailed down. So your customer needs to have a need that your skill will serve or your product is going to solve. So you need to know who they are, their age, what they like, what they don't like, what they do, what they don't do. So really define who your ultimate customer would be. Then you need to go out and find them. So again, leverage that social media and start brainstorming who they are, where will you find them, how will you best meet their need, how are you going to get yourself that skill of yours or the product you're going to offer in front of them, and how are you going to make sure that they choose you and that they buy from you and that they are returning to you. You want to turn someone from a customer into a fan. And that leads us to essential number 5, which is community over competition. Unfortunately, not everyone is going to believe in this, but I do. And I think it is so, so important to running a business. Seek out guidance, mentoring, and learn from someone you look up to. Put yourself out there and network and connect with people. It's going to be awkward at first, and, prepared not to get answered, because it's happened to me, but don't let that rejection fill you, because God is going to lead you to places that nowhere else will. So you just never know what opportunities He is going to bring your way or the doors He may open as you begin to step out. Truth is, you're going to start out small with a small desire or small dream or idea. But start looking around now and find people who inspire you, who are where you want to be and who have paved the way before you. Keep stepping out in faith. Keep reaching out. Keep trying, even if you don't get responses. The more doors you knock on, the more doors that will eventually open to you. Sometimes all it takes is for you to have the right product at exactly the right moment. But how will you know? Well, if you surrender it all to God, He will guide your steps. So those are the 5 essentials you need to step out and start your business from scratch. So grab hold of that God-sized dream you have, take that baby step of faith and just start. We need to stop getting swayed by what society thinks we should be doing. Could we stop being women who are constantly listening to what and who the world, our family, or our friends tell us to be? And let's start being the person God has called us to be. So while you may not have any idea of what you are doing yet, know that neither did I when I first started out. But by keeping God close and surrendering it all back to Him, He will guide you just as He guided me. With Him, you're going to figure it out one baby step at a time. So I want to encourage you, if you have an idea, if you have that little nudge, to start up that blog, to open that shop, to write that book, to launch that little side business, but are too scared to step out because of fear, whether that be fear of failing or fear of not knowing enough, I want you to know that no one really knows what they are doing when they first start. Honestly, everyone who starts something is going in with no idea on where that little dream that they have is going to take them. And you want to know something else? You've totally got this. So what's next? You know your skill or product, you've got the essential ingredients down pat, and you're ready to go. But something keeps happening. Something keeps stopping you. You kind of keep getting in your own way, You might be perfectionist and kind of want everything to be perfect before you launch, so you never really launch. You pause and delay, you keep umming and ahhing about when that perfect time to take the next step is and to put yourself out there in public is actually going to be. Well, firstly, there will never be a perfect time. And secondly, that little thing that keeps stopping you is what I like to call procrastination. And I'm very familiar with it. It is the number one dream killer. It is the number one thing that is going to stop you in your tracks. And in part 2 of this series, I'm going to chat through procrastination and set out the stages of business that you might see yourself going through from startup to, head CEO status. We all go through these same stages, and I'm going to walk you through them as I myself go through them. Now, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it and are now able to implement these essential ingredients as you build your side business from scratch. Thanks once again for joining me, and make sure you tune into next week's episode number 10. I don't know if you can tell, but I am so excited to hit double digits. So we're going to celebrate. We're going to have a great chat with my husband, Ash. So don't forget that if you have any questions, it's all on the table next week. Make sure you send them through to me either via the Grace Code podcast website or hit me up at the.gracecode over on Instagram. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So until then, have a beautifully blessed week.
Thanks so much for joining us this week on the Grace Code podcast. This show is made possible because of listeners like you. If you want to find out more about the Grace Code, head over to our Instagram at the.gracecode and say hello. If you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode, and be sure to tune in next Wednesday when we drop our next show. Until then, have a beautifully blessed week.